Hello, let me know if you can hear me. Hello, Trans-Pennsylvania Films. Nice, yeah, you're not usually able to make it, are you? Thank you. Hello, welcome. My music is too loud, I can't hear myself talk. So I've been tinkering again, as you may have noticed. We have the nice face cam back. Thank you, good, you can hear me, awesome. I will never stop tinkering with this setup. I need to tinker. That's what I do. That's my whole thing. Even if it was perfect, I would still tinker and it will never be perfect. So, you know. But yeah, I've moved some cameras around again. I realized that the good cam wasn't working well as an overhead cam because of the way it focuses, and it was just not working out. So I changed things around again, but the good news is, Demon Dreamer, hello. Nice to see you. Happy Friday if you're watching this live. I love cheese. Hello. Everybody's here. This is good. This is great. I like it when people show up. Otherwise, talking to nobody is no fun. Yeah, so happy Friday if you're watching this live. If you're not, happy whatever day it is when you're watching the VOD. We have a lot to do today, so we're going to get right to it. Let me get the coffee. Slugfan14, hello. Wow, everybody's sounding in. Sound off. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it looks like everything's going. We got YouTube online, Twitch is online, Twitter's online, Facebook's online. Everything looks like it's there. If you're on any platform that is having problems, please let me know. But other than that, I'm going to close this window so I'm not constantly distracted by myself. And we will get to it. I have an email. Should I check my email? I probably shouldn't check my email when I'm live online. Let me check my email. Oh, it's just YouTube telling me that I'm online. Well, thank you, YouTube, for telling me the thing that I already know. Yeah, so we got a lot to do today. If you haven't been on the YouTube channel, I did make a supplemental video. I'm going to start doing this every now and then when I want to do something that's between these streams to the pattern or to whatever it is we're working on, but I want to keep the streams going, so I'm going to do these little sort of interstitial or supplemental videos. So go to the YouTube channel, check that, because I did do some things off air. Yes, thank you, Slugfan. That's I'm happy to do it. So, speaking of what we're doing, let's go to the agenda here. There we go. So, intro, of course, is right now. So, where we're at, I went ahead and I finished one arm. We're going to finish the other arm live. So this is where we're going to end up with both arms right here. And I think it's a pretty good looking arm. So we're going to finish the other arm today. That is first on the agenda. So we're going to sew the fleece pattern, sew the skin, and then put it all together. I did go ahead and I just sandwiched all those bits together and glued it all together. I did that off stream because I've done that plenty of times. You probably all know what that is. If not, I have put together a hand like this many times on stream, so you can go back and check out the archives. We're going to do this over and over again, so we're going to get into details more. If you need any advice about putting the hand together, like what we built last time on stream, by all means, ask me. But I want to keep these moving, like I said. So that's the first thing. We're going to try putting the arm together. Then we are going to add boning into the body, top and bottom. And the other thing, and then if there's time, we're going to attach the arms. There may not be time. If there isn't time, I'll do that in a supplemental video. We'll put that up like next week. But the other thing I went ahead and did. Heath, hello, how you doing? It is a cute little arm. It's very, I looked at it, it's very Fraggly, right? You can see a Fraggle having this arm. But if you weren't here for last stream, this is one of the things we did last stream is we just designed and built a hand pattern from scratch. That's what this is. Koya, hello. I'm good, how are you? Wow, lots of people here. 11 people already, that's fantastic. So yeah, so that's what we're doing today. We're gonna finish the other arm, right? And that way, you know, I just saved a little time, so this way we can just build the whole arm and hopefully put it all together today. Prototyping Max makes the puppet's fangs extend. Wow. Particularly the Fang mech. No, I've never built anything like a Fang mech. I mean, I'm not super into mechs. We have talked about this a little bit before. I do a simple eyebrow mech, and that's the only thing I really have done on a regular basis. I'm also looking at doing an ear mech for the Oracle at some point, but I'm still working my way towards that. I'm probably not the best person to ask about mechs, but you know, I think we'll get into it more. I would like to have more experience with that, so we can do that on stream. I got your goblin pattern for my birthday. Awesome. Be okay if I message you on Twitter with a question? Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I think we're probably going to do a goblin build at some point on this stream from like beginning to end. Got to figure out a way how to not show the pattern on stream and do that, but it's also, you know, it's helpful for people who have bought the goblin pattern. But it's very similar to this whole process. So what I did off stream was I went ahead and I just sewed the body to the neck, and that's all. I did this while it was inside out, and I just hand stitched it. This is just I can't remember what I did. I think I may have done a locking whip stitch on this. I did test fit this over the body, and it fits just fine. One of the darts that I did on the side here was a little too pointy, it was a little too square, so I just trimmed that off and ladder stitched it up, and so it just lays a little bit nicer. You may have to do that from time to time, but we'll demonstrate that. That's basically draping. We'll demonstrate that in more detail later. The next puppet we build is going to be a draped body, so we'll get into that in detail later, but that's all. I see everybody's introducing themselves to each other. That's great. Did you stitch them out and how did you glue them out? And this, all of mine are stitched in first. I tried, we did talk about this on a previous stream. I'm not good at the folding and gluing. I know it's the way that a lot of professionals do. I'm just really bad at it. So this is the way that I have found the most consistent and clean results, is by doing a fabric mouth plate and stitching that in. If you go back and you watch the first video of this series, it's on the playlist on the YouTube channel. I talk a lot about that, about my preference for putting mouth plates in, and I always do stitched fabric mouth plates and then glue them in and turn it. So when this started out, we can even just do this. This started out like this, all right? So there's a fabric mouth plate that's glued on there. And when I put the body on, I just pinned it up and then stitched all around the neck. And so once you glue the fabric mouth plate in there, then you just turn it. And it's fun because this is Pac-Man, right? So it's like eating. You just turn it, and because fleece is nice and stretchy, and you get lots of weird wrinkles, and you just sort of smooth out the wrinkles. And there we go, right? Real easy, real simple. Like I said, I know other builders who cannot stand to do the stitch and glue method, who only want to do fold and glue, and that's perfectly reasonable. It's whatever you feel comfortable with is what's going to work, right? And I'm just lousy at it, so I want to get better at it though. I want to practice it because I know it is the way that a lot of professionals do. So we should jump right in, because a caveat. I got in the sewing machine. If you follow me on Twitter, you know about this. And if you watched the interstitial video, you know I got into the sewing machine, and I'm still kind of working out its quirks. And it went bad at first. I think I've got it worked out. It was mostly me. It was mostly my problem. I learned some bad habits because my old machine, literally both my old machine and the fact that the machine was old, it was that heavy duty Singer, yeah. So that's my new machine. My old machine was a Singer, but I can't even remember. It was quite old. But it was a lot more forgiving. I can go into the technical reasons why. It's because of how the hook on the bottom works. But this one, you have to be more precise with it. And I learned bad habits that I am now having to unlearn. Because this machine is much less forgiving. So I may have some issues. I don't know. I used it all day yesterday and it was fine. I think I got it worked out. You can buy metal bobbins. I thought you weren't supposed to use metal bobbins in the Singer Heavy Duty. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a bobbin, right? But that's interesting. I did not know that. But here's what we're going to do. So let's go to the top cam. Here we go. So here's where we are. I'm going to put this arm aside somewhere. I don't know, over here. And I've gone ahead and I've traced the pattern on, this is just regular old fleece and folded in half. I've clipped it all together, traced the pattern. Hey, how you doing? Travis, right, that's right. I'm gonna call you TC, but oh, I keep forgetting I got the camera up here now, okay. Sure, go ahead, by all means, go ahead and ask. It's a Q&A stream after all. Sometimes I may have to defer questions for a little bit later because I want to sort of get through what we're doing, but by all means, ask anything at any time, and I may ask you to ask me again later, that's all. But by all means, let me know what you want to know. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the machine. Now, you don't have to do this on a machine. You can cut all this out and stitch it all by hand, and that will work just fine. This is just much faster if you do it on the machine. How did I end up getting into building and making puppets? Okay, good question. That's actually a viewer question as well. Maybe we'll get to that near the end. If there's time, let's go to that. But honestly, the reason that I started building puppets as an adult, I built them when I was a kid quite a lot. And then I kind of got out of it. As an adult, I did it because I wanted puppets for my show, for the Oracle, that I couldn't find anywhere. I couldn't find exactly what I wanted, at least not for anything that I could afford. And then I found somebody to build me what I wanted, and they ripped me off. they stole my money, basically. I'm not going to say who it was. They, I think, are relatively known. I know they are known in the Muppet reproduction area. But they are also known to rip people off as well. And it's not Mike Lisa. I know that's another person that is notorious for walking away and ripping people off. No, this was a different person that ripped me off. And I just kind of went, well, if that's the way it's going to be, I'm just going to learn myself. It was kind of out of spite, to be honest. But look where we ended up, right? So let me get the machine set up here. We're going to go to the shoulder cam, which is there. So this is now where the webcam is, because we don't really need a great quality camera on this, I think, because it's so far away. So let me just put this up here. Here we go. Be nice to me, singer. We're going to try this. Revenge is a dish best served in place. Absolutely. All right. I've also been watching a YouTube channel because, like, one of the things you should do as a puppet builder is, like, look at disciplines outside of just strictly puppet building. So I've been watching a lot of, like, sewers, like, you know, clothing makers and stuff like that. I've been watching some really great, Evelyn Wood is a vintage seamstress who does these fantastic tutorial videos. Focusing specifically on beginners, and her videos are fantastic. She's really helped a lot with some of the problems that I was having. So that's always a good little thing to do, is like look at disciplines that are outside of strictly puppet building. All right, here we go. Yeah, I know. It ended up okay. I kind of owe that individual a bit of a debt when you look at it that way, because it prompted me to do what I'm doing now. Already I've got the thread in the wrong place. There we go. All right, everything's fine. No worries. I'm using a very short stitch for this because it just looks fantastic. This machine can do a much shorter stitch than my old machine, and it looks great. So I'm doing that. It's also really fast, like really fast. Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about the old ogre back there. These are my two latest here. That small and that ogre are the two latest ones. Are of course sitting near Kermit to be blessed, other way out the door. I'm really, really happy with how both of those came out. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I went down, I don't know if we can, what's the top cam look like in this case? Well, kind of, you can kind of see it. So I went down this one edge here. I'm going to actually take it out and put it in again, because this is, as you can see, what we want to do when we're doing this is we leave a gap, right? These marks indicate where the gap is going to be that we're going to stick the insert in. So I'm just going to do that. One of the tips for the sewing machine that I learned from Evelyn Wood that I wasn't doing is always leave quite a long tail on your threads. That's one of the reasons I was getting my threads tangled. They were being sort of drawn back into the machine. He's smaller than he looks. We talked about this before, that puppets on camera read much bigger. I'll get him down in a second. We can have a close look at him. Let me get through this bit and then we'll get the ogre down. I like the ogre. So we got through one line. One line is done. This is promising. Now, of course, this is the hard one because this is where we got to go around the fingers, and that's just never fun. That's another reason why you want to use a short stitch for this, because a short stitch is gonna, the feed dogs are gonna pull it in shorter distances so you can get around corners easier. It is definitely in relation to Kermit. That's a pretty big Kermit. That's a full size, that's a Henson-sized Kermit as well. It's a 4-inch mouth plate. And that Kermit's pretty big. The Kermit that's up top, this one here, that's a 3.5-inch mouth plate. That's scaled more to my hand. So that's just a slightly smaller Kermit than that one over there. But we can talk about that. Yeah. I got 2 Kermits. There's probably going to be a 3rd Kermit. I haven't done a full body Kermit in a 3.5-inch mouth plate scale, and I'm probably going to be doing that at some point in the future. Definitely not on stream, because that's when the lawyers will definitely come after you. I'm not going to teach you how to make Kermit, I'm sorry. All right, here we go, around the fingers. This is why I never do 3 fingers. It's no fun. Sometimes when you're going around a really tight corner, you just have to drop the needle, lift the foot, reposition, drop the foot, and keep going. It's the only way to get around a corner sometimes. This one I'm gonna have a light touch on the foot pedal. Also learned that when you're at the corners of the fingers, I always do a couple of extra back and forth stitches in there because that can get a bit weak. So you see I'm doing that by hand. This is between the fingers, and now I'm hitting the reverse. I did 2 stitches forward, 2 stitches back. Let it go. 2 stitches forward, and carry on. Because that space in between the fingers there, when you push the insert in, that can come apart pretty easily. So. Yes, absolutely. This is much easier to sew if you give yourself enough. This is basically just a big seam allowance, right? You don't have to give quite this much. I'm not terribly accurate with the machine, so I like to give myself a lot of forgiveness. Nice and slow, around the corner. It is a little awkward to feed it around sometimes, but you'll get there. The other tricky thing I find is because the fleece is stretchy, and you're trying to turn it, right? It's just stretching and distorting instead of actually turning. All right, here we go, around the corner. We're almost there. This is actually going okay. Backwards, forwards, both of those directions. I read that all of the Project Puppet patterns don't have a lower jaw. Is that true? Let me think. The Simple series do not. Think. So they kind of do the way that they do the Simple series. This isn't true for all of them, but the Simple series, they use a foam mouth plate inside, so, and they don't use grips. The foam mouth plate kind of holds it open. Actually, this one here. Let me get it down and then knock everything over, of course. This was the first puppet I built when I decided to get serious about it. I dropped the nose on the floor. It's fine. Yeah, let's go here. So this is the simple or the glorified sock puppet pattern. And so this lower jaw here, there's a foam mouth plate in here. I wonder if I can probably turn this guy inside out. I don't really care what happens to it. So here we go. So there's no foam skull in this one. This is, like I said, the glorified sock puppet. But what there is, see if I can get this out. What there is this foam mouth plate, right? And this foam holds it open. So I did put grips in here anyway, it's because it's me. But you don't really need grips because the foam is sort of holding it open and then you just close it. But they're all kind of like this. All the Simple series are kind of like this with this foam mouth plate. And this foam mouth plate then gives some definition. So there's kind of a lower jaw, but not really. The ones that have the foam skulls, let me see if I have anything that's already built. I do. Oh, that's frightening. There we go. There we are.
No problem. I look worse for wear.
We'll just put you over there and I'll put it back up on the shelf later. Forgive me for being out of shot, but I want to grab this too. This is, I can't remember. It's the melon head. That's it. This is the melon head. I think it's still in workable shape. So this one does have a foam skull. This is the melon head pattern. But the lower jaw is also like that glorified sock puppet in that there's just a foam mouth plate, right? Now, that being said, you can easily alter these. You can take, I know people who've built Ernie with this specific pattern, and all they've done is they've just mirrored it, right? They've mirrored the top of the skull on the bottom, and then they've made whatever changes and adjustments that they want. But this is, all the Project Puppet patterns are great to have. They're a fantastic starting place for a lot of different projects. So I would recommend getting them no matter what, because remember, these are all just starting points. You can take these and alter them in any way that suits you. And that's a very good practice to get into. It's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're starting at a point and then we're iterating on that. So yes, I would recommend if you want a lower jaw, get the Project Puppet patterns and make a lower jaw for them, right? It's a good habit to get in. All right, here we go. One more finger. Hear me, baby, hold together. This is getting a little ugly. All right. Okay, we went outside the line a little bit, but that's all right. It'll trim up. Yeah, particularly when you're just starting out, the project puppet patterns are all fantastic. I would recommend getting them all. They're even as a starting point for other things. Okay, I think we got through it. I think we're okay. Let me put the machine back and we'll switch back to a slightly more comfortable camera. Yes, and like I said, that's what the project puppet patterns are really great for, is starting points. Another thing that's really great for that is exactly what we're doing here. One of my agendas with this series is to sort of go, well, you know, yes, absolutely. I understand the hunger for patterns particularly when you're first starting out. You just want all the patterns you can find, right? That seems to be some kind of magical doorway into building more and better puppets. And yeah, sure, it's good to build a big library of patterns, but you don't, like, if they can be expensive. If you don't want to spend the money or don't have the money, you can still do this. You just have to make your own patterns, and that's totally viable, not difficult thing to do. You don't have to get into clay maquetting. You can just draw a thing and make it and then go from there. That's what the point of this series of live streams is. So, you know, that's it's a good habit to get into, not just because you can then just make your own patterns, but for altering other patterns, for altering patterns that you get, you know, because a project puppet pattern is always going to look like a project puppet pattern, right? So if you can get that and then change it and alter it and make it yours, right, then your puppets are going to look better. Your puppets are going to look like yours rather than just a project puppet pattern, right? Here's the thing about sewing machines. I was exactly the same way. I hadn't really used a sewing machine before I started this. Let's go to the top cam. I think it's probably better. And I just kind of dived in and I watched some YouTube videos, and I know this is easy to say when you've had experience, but it really isn't as intimidating as it looks. You just have to you just need the experience. The thing that's going to give you the confidence is experience. So you just have to dive in and make your mistakes, you know, and you will learn from those mistakes. So I know I went to the top cam and then I took the thing off of the camera. Well done. I'm just cutting this out. I'm leaving enough of seam allowance so we're not cutting through the stitches. And remember, we did leave this gap right here. In fact, I think that gap may not be big enough, but I guess we'll find out. I've seen other patterns that leave a very, very small gap to stuff your hand insert in, and that's maddening. Always leave a nice generous gap to stuff your hand insert in. You're gonna ladder stitch this closed anyway. It'll be fine. You don't need to struggle with a small gap. We may actually widen this just to make it easier. There will be some hand stitching on stream today because I'm gonna close this up, right? But like I was saying before, a good thing to do is look outside of the strictly puppet building disciplines. I should have had a link ready. Evelyn Wood is the name of the seamstress whose videos I've been watching to kind of get used to my new machine. And she's fantastic and really, really beginner friendly, and will here I know are the frustrations you're facing, here are the problems, and here's how to solve them. She's very much like that, and I heartily recommend. She's a good teacher. Evelyn Wood, which I know is somebody else that I should know. That somebody else has the name Evelyn Wood. I just don't know who it is. An actress or something. Go. Just trimming up the fingers. You want to get pretty close to the stitches without, of course, cutting the stitches. Leave enough room, because you got to remember this is a woven fabric, right? So it can come unraveled. You got to be real careful with that. Have you made fur hand and arm? And do you have any preferences for the direction of the fur? Oh yes, I've made lots. So it really depends on the character. Something like a Cookie Monster, for example, like you want the fur going towards the fingers, right? Because you want that little pointy bit at the end of the fingers. But I have also done them the other way, so that you get a kind of like, when the arm is down, it actually is going in the opposite direction, and so you get this really kind of scraggly, shaggy thing. So it's really a character decision. But most of the time, you're going down towards the fingers, so you get the little pointy bits at the end. Oh, excuse me, my nose is running. I will mute the mic while I blow my nose. One time, I remember one time when I first, I think it was an arm rod furry monsters. I was doing the arms, and I realized I had cut one arm in the opposite direction from the other. So the fur on one arm was going this way, and the fur on the other arm was going the other way. And I'm like, oh boy, now what? Because I didn't have any more fur. That was the last I had. You can actually change the direction of the fur. What you need is one of these and patience. And you can, and don't brush or comb fur. Just use your hand and a hot hair dryer, not too hot because you don't want to melt it. But you can just take a hair dryer, and you can actually change the nap direction. It just takes a little while, and that's all. But yeah, like I said, it depends on the character. And the funny thing is, with that live hand or that arm rod monster, I ended up doing it so the fur was going like away from the fingers, because they were very thin arms, and it just made this nice, almost Grovery quality scraggliness to it. And it just looked cool. So it really depends on the character. Like I said, most of the time, yes, I agree. You want to go down towards the fingers. Get these clips out of the way here. So we're good. We can now turn this hand. Yeah, I've never boiled fur, and I really want to. I haven't dyed fur either. I've dyed foam and I've dyed fleece, but I haven't dyed fur. But yeah, that's I love texturing fur, so I use either hair products or white glue and water, and I'll texture fur. I'll like get it all scrunchy or going in a particular direction or something. I have done that quite a bit, but I haven't boiled fur, and I really want to. That looks really cool. So what we're going to do now is we are going to turn. I always use a little pen or something to help with this. Well, I guess this finger could use some trimming. Right there, we got a little bit on. The other thing is, I haven't been doing this for very long. I hate presenting myself like I'm some kind of authority, because I'm not. There are lots of people who have been doing this way longer than me. I've just had some success, I think, with it, or I've got an eye for it, and I also like streaming, so I'm just sharing what I know. I, by all means, do not know everything. Lots of people who are way, way more experienced than me. Thankfully, I've been able to learn from those people. So, Swazzle Studios on YouTube has a fantastic YouTube channel where they give lots of tips. BJ Geyer, as I keep talking about, I did BJ Geyer's courses on the Stan Winston School. Amazing. Really, really fantastic teacher. I'm going to try and do one of his workshops at some point, because I just want to meet him, because we're friendly on Facebook. He's a really great guy, so it'll be a fun video, since it would probably be difficult to video on live. Yeah, well, yes, absolutely, it would be difficult to do a live stream. BJ Geyer, in his course, the Stan Winston School, does do boiling fur, and does demonstrate that. Okay, here we go. We have turned our skin on our hand. One design change I would make for another iteration of this is, I think the thumb is a little too long. It looks fine once you get the armature in there and you bend it all into place. It looks fine, but I think this thumb might be a little bit too long, but that's minor. So now what we got to do is have some coffee. Woo! We're flying through this. We've got a lot to do. I want to see if we can get it all done. Oi. Okay. So now we gotta shove this up in here. It's fun, right? This is why I didn't leave a big enough gap. I'm gonna try it anyway, because remember, the fleece is stretchy. But tips for doing this, gosh, I wish there were some. It is a struggle. It is always a struggle. And this is among the reasons why nobody I know likes doing hands. But I generally try and go kind of one finger at a time and get each finger seated at the base of where they're going to end up before I really shove it all in there. But it is a struggle. It's every single time. This is a chore. This one isn't being too bad. But this is why I say leave yourself a nice big gap. Okay, that's not too bad. So now we can really tuck it up in there. You want to try and get it right to the end, but the problem is you're gonna like compress this foam a little bit as you're doing this. So be gentle, go slow. In life as well as puppet building. Here we go. I think we're in good shape. Woo! This is always a little bit nerve-wracking, so it's always, let's make sure that our stitches are holding. Yeah, everything's good. Okay, so now is the fun part where you get to watch me sit here and hand stitch something. Because we've got to close up this seam. We're going to do a ladder stitch to close that up. The sometimes erroneously called the Henson stitch. I have talked about or ranted about that on live stream before. There is no such thing as the Henson stitch. It's literally an inside joke, but we'll get into that at some point. Are your hands able to grip light items? Yes, absolutely, because there are wire armatures in here. I did that. I put these together in the last video, so if you go back and watch the VOD on YouTube, you'll see there are the steel wire armatures in this, and so these fingers can bend, and they will bend a lot. Eventually, it will break because these are just steel wires, and they will snap eventually. But you can pose them, and you can hold small things. Light things. Most of the time, if you want to hold a heavier prop, they'll do, like on TV sets and stuff, they'll actually pin it. They'll have a rig where you can pin into this hand, and that way they'll hold on to stuff. Toupee tape is also frequently used for like sticking stuff to a puppet. Shop the Bud, hello, hand sewing, nice. We'll hand sew together. Here we go. So I got some thread. This is why I'm on this camera, because it's just sitting and talking at this point, right? All I have to do is close up this gap. We're going to do, I think, another stream where we talk specifically about different stitches. There's so much to get through in this one that I'm not going to sort of dwell on it. If you don't know how to ladder stitch, we will get into that. Just not at this particular juncture. I'm just going to try and get this done. Does that ogre have teddy bear eyes? Well, yeah, they're safety eyes. Oh, you know what? Let's get the ogre down before we get into this. Since we're at this point, let me see if I can get the ogre down without knocking everything over. That might be a bit of a challenge. Here we go. Come on, be nice, ogre. Okay, so as you can see, the ogre is not quite as big when you get right next to a human as you think. So these are pretty big safety eyes. I got a whole bunch of ones that were like quite large. There is a grip. It's a single finger loop on the top and bottom. Hello, hi ogre. And of course we can get the live hands. Go in here. Oh, hello. Here we go. It's always hard to sleeve a puppet when you're got your hand inside the head. So you've got the claws. Oh, hello, me ogre. What this? This like where a puppet come to life. Yes. So there we go. There's our ogre. I like the ogres a lot. I'm going to do a lot of these. There's, again, a lot of design opportunities here that you could just go nuts and do anything. I love the nose. I did this pattern specifically for this ogre. Yeah, and like how the nose is a bit wiggly as well. Yes, this good. Yes, hello. So hopefully this ogre will be going up on the shop today. Maybe I won't have time to get the photography done, but we'll see. Okay, back you go. You can have your little purple friend back. There we go. Ah. Never done ladder stitch, even though I've watched you do it. Ladder stitches, there's you know, there are opinions about ladder stitching. It's very useful when you don't have access to the inside. Normally, for almost everything, if you have access to the inside, to the, you know, the reverse side of the fabric, it's better to do anything other than a ladder stitch, because ladder stitches aren't terribly strong. They're largely cosmetic. They're largely used to like either do something like this where you're closing up a gap and you literally can't get to the inside of the fabric, or for like stitching on a feature like, you know, ears or nose or whatever. But they're not structural stitches. So you generally want to do something other than a ladder stitch if you can get to the inside. But ladder stitches are like, really, all you need to know for puppet building in terms of stitches are like a whip stitch and a ladder stitch. If you can do those, you're good. Like you can do everything with those. So I would recommend doing it. There's lots of tutorials online, and like I said, later we're gonna at some point switch to the close-up cam here, and we'll do some like stitching demonstrations, specifically how to do them. But like I said, I want to get through this, so we're just gonna. A little tip for doing, if you're doing this and you're having some problems, I do this particularly with fur and I'm closing up a back seam or something. I use one of these upholstery needles. They're curved. It's hard to see. Here we go. There we go. A curved upholstery needle really helps get to little areas that are tricky. Ogres, trolls, goblins, like you just an orc and you have the army of Sauron. Yeah, it's what I like. It's what I've been through, right? My ogres are very orcish. I mean, let's face it, like ogres, trolls, goblins, they're all in the same family, right? They're all like, you could argue that one is just a larger version of the other. Even like etymologically, goblins and trolls and, you know, bugbears and those whole family of D&D monsters all have a similar, kobolds, they all have a similar etymological root. Purple Cheesecake Zebra, hello, how are you? Thank you for coming by. We got 15 people here total. That's fantastic. I think that may be a new record. You're just in time for the exciting hand sewing action. Well done. You showed up just in time to watch nothing happen. Okay, so I always, unless it's a very, very sort of straight area, I always use a curved upholstery needle for doing these ladder stitches. It's just a little bit easier to get around. So when I'm doing a ladder stitch and I'm closing up a hand like this, I always start from the finger and then work your way towards the rod, and we're going to tie it off around the rod, and it makes it nice and strong. And this is one of the ways that I make sure I don't hit myself in the face with the rod, which has happened lots. Rest it on your shoulder. Always get used to doing this. Right, and that way you're not going to whack yourself in the face with the rod, although you'll probably whack yourself in the face with a rod. I will probably, during this stream, I will probably whack myself in the face with a rod, so you can look forward to that. That's exciting. Here we go, exciting. Hand sewing. The goal for this particular puppet is this will probably end up going on the shop. But what I want to do is, you know, through the course of this series, we're going to end up with a finished character. And, you know, I want to make it good enough to go on the shop. So that's where we're gonna go next. By the time we do get to the next stream, the arms will be done, the arms will be attached, everything will be ready to go. We can actually start doing facial features. And so that's when things get really fun. Because that's when we start thinking about, like, you know, what's the character like and what's it gonna be. And I can guarantee you, despite the fact that this is a very generic looking base, is that going to end up being a human-like character, like an elf? Well, no, definitely not. Elves is not a bad idea. I just don't do human, like the ogres are pretty much the closest thing to a humanoid character that I've ever done. Maybe Jelly Roll. But I just don't do human characters. I just find them boring. If I'm going to do a human-like character, the most I'll go is like a Bert and Ernie style, very abstract. Those I like. I like monsters. It's just what I prefer. I just like monsters. I make monsters. That's my thing. Maybe I am a Dark Lord. Dark Lord with Hawaiian shirts. Well, it's new. So I think what I'm actually thinking of for this character is like a little demon-y imp. Kind of very goblin-y. I like goblins are my favorite monster, so I'm always gonna lean towards goblin-like. But like a little sort of crackly imp. That's what human puppets give me nightmares. Yeah, you know, I get that. I even get like there are some people who just straight up have a puppet, like a phobia of puppets. It's actually quite interesting. Sith Kevin, yes.
You are all my young apprentice.
You know, there's lots of interesting psychological ramifications to what puppets are and what they represent, and you know, there's a deep well there that, you know, people just, if you think about it for a while, you can get into the weeds. But I'm not going to give a lecture on the psychological ramifications of puppetry while I'm trying the ladder stitch. We can Emperor Redcap from the Goblin pattern. Nice. Looking forward to that. That's the other thing. If you ever do, like, if any of you out there, you know, buy the Goblin pattern and you make, like, I know Travis has made plenty of goblins. Show me. Let me know. Tag me on social media. I want to see what you do. That's a thrill for me to see what other people do with my pattern. Halfway there. This is actually going pretty fast. Puppets that eat people give me nightmares. Yeah. Yeah, Jim had a bit of a thing about that, didn't he? That was really the whole, you know, the whole Vorophile thing was kind of a thing from the beginning of the Muppets. I'm not saying nothing, but, you know, I think we know some things about Jim that maybe he didn't want us to know. All right, we're getting there. That's kind of a line I like to skirt. I like to, you know, obviously I make cute things, but I also like to make them a little bit creepy, just like a little something there. It's not super cutesy. It's not that kind of Disney-fied enforced cuteness. There's a slight creepiness to them. I like that. I'm a recovering goth, what can I say? I am a Dark Lord, let's face it. I'm just a Dark Lord who doesn't wear black. Anymore. Alright, we're almost done. Are there any lines you wouldn't cross with a puppet? Yes, and as a matter of fact, that's another viewer question. We can talk about that right now. Absolutely. I get really squicked out by people who make puppets that are like real racial stereotypes. then there's plenty of those. That I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do anything that's mocking, right? Like, there's a difference between a caricature and something that's a stereotype. And so, no, I absolutely would not do anything that's, a terrible racial stereotype, or something that's like making fun of, people with weight issues, or, anything that's mocking, anything that's mean-spirited, and that's pretty obvious. You know it when you see it. So yeah, I would not do anything like that. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I know there's some people who do like adult stuff. That's just not my thing. I don't really have an objection to it ethically, but it's just not what I do. It's just not what I'm interested in. But good question. But everyone knows what their comfort level is, right? Okay, so I have finished. Tied it off. I've tied it off around the rod. I will blend this seam later, but let's see if we can get to. Maybe I can show it in here. Yeah, kinda. Here, can we get to a good angle? So there we are. There's the ladder stitch, and we just closed up. I haven't blended the seam yet. I haven't picked this yet, so you can still see the stitches. But Spitting Image adult or Avenue Q adult? Good question. Well, Spitting Image uses such a drastically different technique. I don't really like those style of puppets, to be honest. I'm a Muppety person, right? So it's just not my thing. They're they're caricatures, right? But they're literally just like caricatures that have been sculpted. And I don't know how to do it, and it's just not my thing. But yeah, no, I know builders who do like, puppets that have, anatomically correct features, shall we say. And that's fine. I don't know what people want with them, but that's their business. That wouldn't be a thing that I would be interested in. Do you blend the machine seams too? Yes. There is a widely held sort of myth that you can't pick a seam from a machine. That is not true. You just can't do it as well. It won't be as hidden as it would if you did a hand stitch, but you absolutely can blend. In fact, I think I did it. Yeah. We can even show the difference. Hey, this close-up cam's coming in handy. So here we go. This is right out of the machine, right? So that's what that stitch looks like. And here's what it looks like after you've blended it. So you could still kind of see it, but it's much, much better hidden. And you literally do it the same way that you would any other. Make sure I can sort of show this. You just go through, take a pin, and you just pick out the fibers. You gotta be careful because it is possible to overdo this and make a big fuzzy mess. And then you have to end up trimming it down. And so it is possible. I would prefer to underdo it than overdo it. Seam blending does look great, but only if it's a light touch. It is possible to really, really overdo it. But yeah, it's you can absolutely seam blend a machine seam. It's much easier, I have found, if you do shorter stitches. Like these stitches are very, very short. And it's much easier with a machine stitch to seam blend them because you don't have the kind of big gaps between them, right? But yeah, there we go. There's the difference right there. And those are both machine sewn, blended. So there you go. Dorak, you made it. Hello, welcome. Would a toothbrush work on that? I don't know. I've never tried. I know that there are people who use different techniques for seam picking. I just take the good old pin and do it. But I know people who use like a wire brush, and I think that might be a little too harsh though. You're covering a really big area, and you don't want to cover a really big area when you're seam blending. You really just want to get into that seam. Otherwise, you run the risk of making just a big old fuzzy lump, right? And that never looks good. So I would prefer an unblended seam to a messy blended seam. That's just my preference. So when you hand sew something, are shorter stitches easier to pick? Good question. My stitches tend to be short anyway, just because they look better. Unless I'm in hurrying, then I will do slightly longer stitches if I'm in a hurry. But generally speaking, short stitches look better regardless. And the picking does look better because you don't have the stitch, like you don't actually see the thread ever, right? And that's why you do shorter stitches. But yeah, I would generally, as a blanket rule, shorter stitches are better. Thank you, Dorak. Okay, so what we're gonna do next, let's go to the top cam. Ba-doom boom. So, I have already bent these fingers into position. So this is gonna be this arm. So this one we're gonna do this arm. So this is left arm, right arm. So what we're gonna do, there's several ways you can stuff this. You can do like a tube if you want sort of a noodly, Kermity style arm. I do that often. For these arms, this is already stuffed with fiber fill, and I stuff it and then I kind of pinch it and move it around, and I get it to almost look like musculature. So you can see when this bends, you've almost got some contours in there, right? You've got a little bit of, it looks like a muscle. I like that. Some characters that's not appropriate for, and you're gonna wanna do like a foam tube or something. But we're just gonna use fiber fill to stuff this. So let's get some fiber fill. So this is just teddy bear stuffing. You can get this craft stores, Amazon, all your local fiber fill store, you know. This is always a bit of a struggle, but nice thing is, remember, fleece stretches. So I just take a chunk. I don't wad it up too tight, but I make sure that it's a sort of a single lump about the size of the thing we want it to end up as. This stuff does compress quite a lot. Yeah, the stuffing makes a huge difference. So this is tricky to do on the table like this. I usually do this closer to the chest. Here, you know what? I'm gonna have to. I'm sorry for demonstration purposes. This isn't the best, but this is the way I usually do it. All right, so I'll form a little hole to poke down in. Make your own jokes at home, and then I'll shove it all up in there. And then push it all the way down. Kevin says, stuff it. That's showing us the top camera. Exactly. So, as you can see now, I've got about the right length for the forearm. Generally speaking, your arm where you want the elbow is pretty much exactly halfway. If you look at a human arm, our forearm and our bicep are kind of the same length. So that's about the average. Are you planning to do any other LGBTQ plus Greeblies? I love the trans one. Absolutely. I've just did one for a client. I haven't got permission to say who they are, but they even be around. That was the colors of the bi flag. And that was a really cool little project. So yeah, I'll probably do something for Pride again this year. I have that one. Nice. Nice. Yeah, you know, I usually, you know, I'm really proud of the fact that I have so many, you know, like marginalized people who are clients of mine. And I love doing that kind of thing. I like to be inclusive and make people feel welcome. And so if I can do a project like that, that makes me feel real good. I like doing that a lot. Oh yeah, the song puppets. I haven't done those in a while. I probably should, because those are like the lowest end, as it were. I can't remember what one of your puppets called. Songs. If so, I'm using their design as inspiration. Is that okay with you? Yeah, absolutely. My inspiration for the song puppets was actually Adam Kreutinger's Snoofs. They're very, very basic, right? They're just a sock puppet, really. They're just a tube with a mouth. I don't own tube in the mouth. You know, you by all means go ahead and do what you like. That's fine. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. Purple cheesecake zebra. Yeah, that was great. So, you know, I did the Pride Greebly, I think was the first one like that. And then I did, I guess the next one would have been Comfy, who was commissioned by a non-binary educator, Morgan. And then the Bi Greebly, and I did a live hands monster in the colors of the trans flag as well. Okay, yes, thank you. People have different usernames. I don't know who everybody is, but now I do. So, hi Scarlett, how you doing? Hope it's not a secret identity here. Haven't blown your superhero cover or something. Okay, here we go. So, it's not perfect. It never is, and that's fine. But, you know, I just kind of stuffed it in 2 chunks. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure you've got a joint at the wrist and at the elbow. So I usually just go and I kind of pinch it like that. And make sure that you've got not much, if any, stuffing. And then, as you can see, that will just form a natural joint. This forearm's a little short, but oh well, we'll live with it. It'll be fine. You won't really notice in the end. So once you get to the end, let's see if we can go up to the top cam. So once you get to the end, you want to come right to the end, either with your foam or your stuffing. And just leave a little bit of room. So there's a couple of different ways that we could go about. I'll give my puppets a general purple theme. The purple really fits. Yes, you know, Scarlett owns the second Goth Greebly. Actually, there was a Goth Greebly before the purple one, but you got the purple one. I remember. I loved that one. That's the one I submitted. Etsy had some kind of design contest, and I picked that Greebly, the purple Greebly, as my best design to date. So there you go. So there's a number of different ways that arms can be attached to a body. I usually use doll joints unless I have a reason not to. Doll joints are really nice and simple and easy and quick, and they're very, very strong. The disadvantage of them is once they're in, they're permanent. So, you know, you can't like take the arms off and put new ones back on. There's another way of doing arms that are semi-removable. So they are on and they are strong, but they don't fall off. What you want to avoid doing is using anything that's going to distend the fabric. So snaps aren't a great idea. Velcro is not a great idea. If you want removable arms, there is a method whereby you put a shoelace. You just string a line up the arm and you attach it at the shoulder and then you tie it off inside. We're gonna do that on a later stream. That's a little bit more advanced than this. We are just gonna use a doll joint in these. So let's get some doll joints. These are, I think, 15 millimeter. I can't remember. But if you've never seen a doll joint, they can be got at most craft stores, and they're usually 2 pieces. Well, there are some that come in 3-piece, but must be high allergens today. I got the window open and my nose is running. You have to forgive me for a second. So here's a doll joint. You know what? Let's go to. Here we go. This close-up cam's coming in real handy today. So there's the doll joint. There's a washer and a plug, basically. And this has little teeth on it. The plug has little teeth on it. And this fits into the washer and it kind of snaps in place. These are super handy for a lot of different things. You can even like attach eyes with these if you epoxy an eye to that. Once used, that is not coming apart exactly. You literally have to break them to get them apart. So you got to be sure. That's it, right? Once it goes in, it ain't coming out. One thing I have noticed with these particular doll joints is it helps to carve out the interior a little bit, because these are right out of the factory. There's a bit of what's called flashing on the inside. There's a little bit of extra plastic in there, and that can make pushing this through. There's a beveled edge. I don't know how closely you can see that. There's a beveled edge, and that's where you push the plug through. There's a little bit too much plastic in there, so I usually carve that out a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier to get the plug through. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and we're not going to do that on the close-up cam, just in case I poke myself with the X-Acto knife, because this is a bit fragile. So let's make sure. Here we go. How does that look? That's all right. So there we go. I just kind of carved out a little bit of plastic flashing on the inside, just to make sure that the plug's going to go in. And then have some coffee. So, the way we're going to put this in is we're going to put the washer end in the end of the arm, like this. And then we're going to put the plug inside the body, poking outwards, because you remember, you don't want to have something that's poking into a puppet if you can avoid it. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Like if you're putting one of these on with or like an eye or something, that's just, they're usually short enough that it's not a problem. But if you can avoid having something poking into a performer's hand, do that. So the way to do that with this is we're going to put the washer end in the end of the arm. We're going to put the plug end in the body facing outwards, and then we're just going to snap them together. So the way that I do this, there are other ways, of course. I actually use hot glue for this. This can be dangerous because you're getting your fingers. Is that what those bumps are? What you mean? These here in the fleece? Or you mean the bumps on like the little ridges? Yeah, how close can we get? So there's little ridges. This focus isn't great, but there's little ridges on, you can see it better against that background, right? And those ridges kind of grab onto the beveled edge of the washer. Oh, and the eyes. The eyes are put together with a mechanism very similar to this. It's a washer and peg that locks into place. It's very much like this, yeah. Yes, and like I said, if you're making your own eyes, you can use doll joints as the connector. Some people use like bolts and nuts for the connectors, and those are metal, like they're too heavy. So I prefer using something like this if I'm making my own eyes. These are otherwise known as, if you look for like doll safety eyes, that's how these are put in. The Ogre has these. But yeah, they're all kind of the same pagan washers system. So what I'm gonna do, actually let's go to the close-up cam for this. Let me get the body out of the way here. So I've got the glue gun hot. Now the method that I have come up with that's kind of the safest, because you are putting your fingers close to hot glue, that's always a bad idea. But this is the fastest way to do it. Is the first thing I do is I glue it on to the edge like that. Then I let it cool for a second. Then I push it down inside, hold the edges, and then glue around the inside, and I kind of fold it all in. If you can sort of see that. We'll show the finished product. But here we go. Hot glue. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit, that out of the way, a little dab of hot glue just on the edge, and then I'm going to stick it, making sure that the beveled edge is outside. I'm just going to stick it lightly on the edge like that. You can see that. Do not pour the hot glue directly onto the hand. No, that would be a bad thing. But you can see we're just, and the thing is, the hot glue will work well on the fabric because the fabric is porous. One of the few places that hot glue actually is good is stuff like this. Anything that's porous, hot glue will work fine with. But we're just giving it a second for that glue to set up a little bit. Sometimes you can kind of, I guess you can't see that because the focus isn't going to cooperate. I got the glue a little bit too close to that hole. Before the glue sets up, you can take something, I got a little piece of chopstick here, and just kind of when the glue is malleable, you can kind of push it out of the way and just make sure you've got a clear run at the hole, right? That's important. You can quote me on that. Okay. So I'm gonna tap down. Do you plan your arm width to match your doll joint size? It's not usually, no. I usually have, like, I get 3 sizes. I get these, which are, I think, about 15 millimeter. I get a 25 millimeter and a 35 millimeter, and those usually cover all bases. You don't have to match this diameter exactly. If you have a really big diameter arm, but you only have a small diameter doll joint, all you need to do is cut like a piece of plastic, like a big washer, and then mount that behind, the peg. And it'll hold. It'll be fine. You could always like increase the size of this by putting a thing behind it, right? It just kind of so happens that it usually works out pretty close. Like this one's pretty close. So as long as it'll go in the end, that's all you need to worry about. So as you can see, I'm kind of tapping that down and holding it in place like that. And then very, very carefully, the camera's not cooperating, I'm gonna go put some hot glue inside here, making sure I'm not squeezing too much glue, just a little bit. And then we're gonna wrap it around. I know it's really hard to see. Yes, trial and error. Often more error than trial, but there we go. So we just gotta hold this in place while the glue sets up, but we're just kind of wrapping it around, right? Experiment and have fun, exactly. 100%. That's the name of the game. But once that glue starts to set up, you can start kind of tapping this down and get it in place. Make sure that you don't have glue down in the hole. We've got a little bit of glue down there. Pull that out if you can. There we go. I think that'll be okay. Now, of course, you could always stitch this if you want. You can always do a running stitch around the circumference and do it like that. You can do this with contact cement for sure. That would be a great thing to do. This works and it's quick. So this is usually what I do if I'm doing a doll joint. So now I just look for any possible gaps. Make sure it's nice and strong. This is something that is going to undergo stresses, so you want to make sure this is going to hold really, really well. The only time I've ever had one of my puppets, that I'm aware of at least, that anyone's told me about, actually get damaged, it was a doll joint coming loose. It wasn't the doll joint's fault. It was user error, shall we say. They tugged a little too hard on the arm and they pulled it right out. They actually ripped the fur. The doll joint didn't give, the fur did. But I that's pretty easy to fix. But nevertheless, you make the stuff that should be strong. So there we go. There's our little doll joint. It's just sitting in there. And once that glue sets up completely, it'll be quite strong. There, we got through the hot glue portion. So now what? Well, according to our agenda, we did. So that's it. We put the arm together. That's the whole arm. There we go. We done. So now we're going to add boning to the body. Everybody loves boning. Now you're just making up your own jokes. It's my job. So let's go here. So here's our body. This is the one I made on the interstitial video. You can go back and watch that on the YouTube channel. So we're just going to put some boning in the top and the bottom, and that will help this hold its shape. The kind of boning that I use for something like this, if you're not going to stitch onto it, which in this case we're not, I just use this plastic. It's nylon, actually. Oh, where have I put my boning? I lost it. There it is. So this is, I won't say the cheap stuff, but it's affordable. The stuff that comes with the fabric jacket can be a little pricey, and I usually don't need that. If I ever do need to stitch onto it, then I'll use the stuff with the fabric around it, but this is just nylon. Now you can technically, I don't know if you can see that, you can stitch onto this. this is porous, right? You can push a needle through that if you have to, but it's not a fun experience, so I wouldn't recommend it. Have I added boning to a sock puppet before? Never a sock puppet. I've only ever done boning when I'm doing foam as well, so I haven't done like a hoop style puppet, like a sack puppet with hooping in it. Although that's another use for boning, but I haven't done specifically that, no. So the way I usually do this, let's get a marker, because the precision here does matter. If you get it too wide, you're gonna flare this out, and you don't want that. And if you get it too narrow, it's gonna distort, and it won't be a perfect circle. So you do have to measure carefully. You don't have to be like 100% precise, but the more precise you can be, the better. So usually what I do is I start it with a circle where I cut it. I just kind of lay this inside, and I slowly increase the diameter until it's just snug, until it's just sitting in there. And then I say, well, it's about here, so I'm gonna cut it, but leave like a couple of inches of leeway. And now that I got this, and some of the reviews said that style had frays. Have you experienced any with that? I've only ever had this fray when I've cut it in half, like when I've lengthwise, when I've made it narrow, then it does definitely fray. So don't do that. That's my advice. And also, when I'm using this stuff, this is getting covered in contact cement. So that's not going to fray. After the contact cement is on it, you're done. You're good. For other people who are using this in like corsetry and stuff like that, I don't know. It may well fray because you're just stitching onto this, right? So that could do something. I don't know. That's never happened to me, but that's also my usage. So if you're covering this with contact cement, you're good. Otherwise, I couldn't say. So I'm getting this just to the point where it's just snug, where you're just touching the sides, getting as close as I can without going too far, and then I'm going to mark it. Boom. I'm going to mark it on the inside as well. So now we know that this is pretty darn correct. So what you want to do to make your life easier, thank goodness there's a nose on the floor, is get yourself some gaff tape. Do not, well, you shouldn't use duct tape in a puppet. Duct tape is plastic with fabric in it, and it tends to wear and get sticky and gross and awful. This stuff is all fabric based. This is what's used in theaters a lot. Yeah, running those. Hey, it's a good joke. This stuff you can put inside a puppet and it'll be fine. So this is gaff tape, not duct tape, gaff tape. It behaves very much like duct tape. So I'm just gonna get a little piece here. Restream, congratulations, you received 100 messages. Hey, we got that last time too. Keep talking, everyone. Apparently that's good. And we're just gonna wrap some gaff tape around, keep that closed while we're working on it. So that's for the top. The bottom, unless your design is perfectly symmetrical, the bottom is always a bit wider. So we're gonna measure out and tape the bottom, and then we're gonna glue this in. What's our time? 12:20, good heavens! We may not get to the arm attachment. Maybe, I don't know. You know what? After this, there's not much. We're going until the arms are on. That's it. I will have a slightly late lunch. That's fine. We're getting the arms on today. We can do that. It's fine. Okay, bottom. Here we go. I don't know if you can hear that. They're doing renovations again on some unit near me, and all I can hear are angle grinders. It's so relaxing. I feel completely calm. It's like ASMR for demons. All right. Measuring. And like I said, you want this as precise as you can make it. You're never going to get it exactly. I mean, you could go crazy and measure this, but who's going to do that? Yeah, it's the good old mic filter is real good at filtering the stuff out. Thank goodness for AI compression. All right, we're going to mark this, and then we'll tape it. I literally had no idea what time it was. There's no concept. It's flown by. Goodness me. Okay. So you don't need to put a big wad of tape on it or something. Just enough to hold it. Remember, you're gonna glue this in, so the glue will do its job. I make sure it is going to hold. Okay, there we go. So there we got our 2 rings of boning. Smaller one on top, larger one on the bottom. So now we get to pull out the barge. Ding, 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 ding. So I'm going to open the window. Well, the window is open. I'm going to turn on the fan. So we're venting the fan out. We're blowing the air that's inside outside, so we're getting rid of the fumes. We are getting some gloves. We are getting the respirator, following all safety precautions. First of all, before I do that, I gotta blow my nose again because whatever's happening is still happening. 1 second. Excuse me. And I gotta turn the mic on. You know what? Let's try it like this. This may sound awful because I got a mic on the mask as well, and I have the mic that I'm wearing. If I turn them both on at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen until I get the mask on, but we're going to find out. All right, that should be good. If this sounds really weird and terrible, let me know. I'm trying to reuse my gloves as much as possible. The music changed when I blew my nose. Excellent. Music is psychotropic, it knows. So I have to make sure that the gloves are the right way out. Because these kind of gloves, these nitrate gloves are actually, there is an inside and an outside. And you put them on the wrong way and they get all slippy and it's not good. Okay, I'm going to put the mask on with both mics on, as I don't want to mess around with turn the mic off, turn the mic on. So, this may sound terrible. Let's see. Let's see how it goes. Putting the mask on. Luke, I am your father, etc. All right. Let me know if you can understand what I'm saying. Says the bottom is pointing upwards. Let's do that first. So I'm just putting glue on the inside. Doesn't sound too bad. Excellent. Good to know.
So we're just going to go around, put about, you know, half an inch or so of glue. Fairly light touch. You never want to add a whole big glopping pile of glue. Go, and glue on the boning. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that at all. My apologies. There we go. I mean, it is what you think it is. I'm putting glue on the boning. You will definitely get glue on your hands doing this. This is why you always wear gloves. Too much glue. That was too much glue. Spread it around. All right, and yes, go right over the tape. That's fine. Okay, to speed things up, we're gonna get the hair dryer. Let it do its thing. I'll have to move the hairdryer off the table, otherwise it's going to blow everything around. This filter is amazing. Okay, and just to reiterate, if you are drying glue with a hairdryer, hopefully you've got one that you can turn the heating element off. You just want air, you don't want heat. If you're trying to reactivate glue and open it up again, then you want heat. All right, so we're going to lay this in. We're just going to kind of randomly pick them back and lay this in. We're not going to pinch, we're not going to put any pressure on it until it's all seated. We're just going to gently lift it apart and place it. Now it is in place, it's where we want it. Then we're going to go around and pinch, put some pressure on it, and that will lock the glue in place. There we go. That's the bottom. Now we do the top. Okay, we're getting there. We may actually be finished on time. Wow. All right, hair dryer time. Let's see, I wasn't paying attention. This tape is starting to loosen up. Hopefully we can get it on before that actually lets go. Yes, even I can make a mistake. All right, let's get this on there before it springs apart. Okay, there. We should be out of the woods now. So, like I said, you want to place this in, pull it apart, seat it. Don't pinch it together yet. You want to be able to place that boning where you want it. And once it is where you want it, then go around and pinch. There we go. Boning accomplished. And we don't need barge anymore, so we can undo all of this nonsense. Here we go. No gloves. These gloves are done for.
Oh, there we go. I'll turn this mic off. Boom. Oh. Do you ever put a third hoop? I haven't needed to. This generally works just fine. But yeah, if you've got a longer body or something that's narrower that's gonna fold, then it's not a bad thing to put a third hoop in. They're tough to do because like you have to get it right in the middle, right? So how are you gonna do that? Usually, what a lot of people do is they'll actually just cut the body in half, put the hoop in, and then glue it back together. I've never needed to. I found this is just fine, but there might be designs where that is helpful. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, now that we've got to this point, we take our body with the skin, and we're just gonna shove this all up in there. So we kind of designated a back where we put the tape. No real reason. This is symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter. Any experience using the toluene-free barge? I do not have any experience. I understand that it doesn't hold as strong. It's not an industrial strength. So I haven't even tried it, but I would be curious to know how well it works. Because, barge is a hazardous material, right? And if you can make it less hazardous, that would be good. Now, when I did the body, the skin pattern, I made it a little bit longer. Yeah, it does. But I've seen there are other brands as well of no or low odor contact cement, and it's generally fine for some applications, but on others, in puppet building, I've heard bad things. I've heard that it doesn't hold well enough. But, it'd be an interesting experiment. So the other thing that I'm going to do with this, and I want to get to the arms, and we've got very little time left, so I don't think I'll do it right now, is we're gonna wrap the bottom around it. We're actually going to glue this in like that. If you did use boning with the fabric on it, you can just stitch this in, but we're gonna glue this in. Maybe I'll do a video for that, maybe not. But here we go. We got our body. It's all done. It's all good. So what I'm gonna do now, because we do want to get to the arm attachment, and that's next. So I'm gonna make sure that this is seated in a place that I like, that the shoulder starts where I want the shoulder to start. Is that what the tooling does? Add odor? I think the tooling is the stuff that's really toxic and smells really bad. Unfortunately, it's also the stuff that makes it glue. So, but I'm not a chemist. I'm not sure. So that looks pretty good, I think. Her shoulders seems to be, it's about right. So, for attaching the arms, where do you attach them? Generally speaking, on a human proportioned character, the arms are pretty high up. You don't want to go too low down. So I usually just go in like maybe half an inch below the shoulder. So about there, I generally just eyeball it. You also want to put them a little bit forward, but not too forward. So you want to go just forward of your, if you have a side line like this, that's the side. You want to go just in front of that. So there's two ways we can do this. And I think we'll do it the quick way, because the not quick way is a bit dangerous, but we will do it another time. Sometimes you can, what I always do is I burn a hole, and if I've done this on stream before. So I'll take a torch. This is a culinary butane torch, and a piece of, yes, fire, yes. And I'll heat up a piece of wire, and I'll burn a hole through this, and it makes a nice, clean, like cauterized hole to go through. I'm not going to do that right now. The other thing you can do is just take a pointy thing, so we got an awl, just poke a hole. So the first thing we want to do is mark where we want the hole. So we're going to come down not quite half an inch, and we're going to go right in front of the sideline. This is largely a matter of taste, where you place your arms. Like I said, for a human proportion character, higher is generally better than lower. But if you're doing like an alien, or a monster or something, maybe there or lower down. It really depends on the character. So we're going to come right about there. So I'm going to mark the hole, and likewise the other side. And come down about there. And then before you do anything else, before you make your holes or anything, I'm just going to roughly place the arms about there and just kind of eyeball it. See, does that look right? And I think it looks pretty good. That'd be all right. I never get them completely even. I don't really worry about that. It's fine. If you want perfection, you've come to the wrong puppet builder. Go to Phil Fletcher. Phil Fletcher is a robot. I'm sure of it. Phil Fletcher makes mathematically perfect puppets, and it's supernatural what Phil Fletcher does. Whew. We're gonna do it. We're gonna finish this phase. That means next time we get to do facial features, and that's the fun part. And that's the part I'm waiting for. So to poke a hole, did I put the awl back? I did. Of course, what you want to do is you want to be careful. You're not going to damage the fabric. You want to make a nice, clean, and yet substantial hole. Now we're going right through the fabric and through the foam as well. So you want to be careful. You don't want to go too hard. You want to get in there. You will hear some fibers breaking, and that's fine. Once you're in there, just give it a little wiggle. Make that hole a little bit bigger. So now there is a hole. It's not going to be very big, but it should be enough for you to get your I probably have to make it a little bit bigger. All right, let me give it a little snip. You want to avoid cutting with scissors, this kind of thing, because you can open it up too much. But there we go. So we've got our peg poking out through the hole. We'll do it on the other side as well. Go. And remember, fleece is stretchy. It'll stretch around. There we go. So we've got our pegs on either side. So now all we got to do is snap down those arms onto the pegs. Make sure we get the ones with the fingers that we already bent on the right side. So then it's really just a matter of getting it lined up. And you'll hear it and you'll really feel it snap into place. And there we go. Boom, boom, boom. One arm. Done. Sometimes it can be a little stiff. Oh, this one's not cooperating at all. All right, hang on. Gonna be like this, are you? Of course, because it's a live stream. There we go. That's got it. Okay. And there we go. So, a couple little things. You'll notice I bent the fingers on this hand, but I haven't bent them on this hand yet. That's something we can talk about. There is a really good kind of neutral position to put the fingers in. This is what I do. Well, you know, people have different preferences, but I bend the thumb a little bit. I bend the index finger a little bit, and then the other two fingers I'll bend considerably more. So the puppet's kind of pointing, sort of. It's sort of like this. That's a really useful position for the puppeteer generally because it looks like very natural. It's a very kind of good neutral position, and yet if they want to make it look like the character's pointing, that's really easy to do, right? So that's a really useful kind of general neutral position. There we go. There. Hey, we can finally use the puppet cam. Look at this. I should put the words puppet cam up there. Let's see. Now remember, we haven't blended the seams. We haven't refined it or anything yet. This is just raw out of the box, but
Hello, I'm new, and we're not sure what I'm going to be yet, but it'll be fun finding out.
there we go. There's our weird little Pac-Man-y creature. Super generic, but that looks all right. Now, the point is, we designed this completely from scratch with a pencil and a piece of paper. And you can get there. You can easily do this. This is within your grasp, believe me. And that's a pretty good looking puppet. I think you agree. I hope you agree. Yeah, so there we go. We did it. We've even got time to spare. Good heavens. Somebody had a question that I said we were going to defer. I forgot who it was and what the question was. If you're still around, sound off, because we got 15 minutes. I can absolutely answer a question. Oh. Woo. That actually looks quite good. I am pleased with our little yellow friend here. Oh, there is one thing to say about mounting arms, actually. Let's go to the top cam again. So doing it this way is fine. If you're going to stuff it, you don't have to worry really about how it's mounted. If you're going to do this with a foam tube, you generally want to kind of bevel the end of the tube so that the shoulder is a bit taller than the armpit. You don't want it mounted like at a 90-degree angle. You want it mounted so when it lies kind of like this. That's more natural. Going at a right angle is still fine. This, it doesn't really matter because this is so flexible that it just flops that way anyway. But foam has a little bit more structure to it, and you're going to want to like make it so that the shoulder lays naturally. We'll demonstrate that when we get to doing a foam tube arm. But that's where we are here. So there we go. So like I said, the only other thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to wrap this fabric around and glue it down to the inside here so we have a nice kind of finished edge. We're not going to do a sock or a tube or a neck tube or anything like that. This will just be the way it is, because as you see, this is a fairly long body. You may even put a costume on this or something that could be longer, so this is plenty of length. And yeah, there we go. There was another viewer question. I did have a viewer question, but I wanted to save it in case we had time, because it's kind of a personal "what about me" question rather than a build question, but I guess we can get to that. So let's see, what was it? I even forgot what it was. Oh, right. It actually isn't. This is a build question. Okay, good. Right. Team Smartass, which I believe was my friend Kat on Instagram. What is your least favorite textile to work with? I actually talked about this with Richard Gomez, I think, on Twitter. If you follow both of us, you probably saw that thread. Interestingly, the last two puppets I made, one was with my least favorite and one was with my most favorite fabric. This is going to sound a little heretical because it's the new hotness in puppet building. I really don't like Fuzzell. Fuzzell, which is it's a product from the wonderful people at Puppet Pelts. Please don't think I'm slagging Puppet Pelts or anything. Puppet Pelts are amazing. I love them. But this is a new type of, I don't even know if it's technically fleece, but it's a fabric that synthetic fabric, and it looks great. It seam blends. If you're doing hand stitches, seam blends unbelievably good. The Oracle is made out of Fuzzell, but it's very plasticky and it's very stiff and it hardly has any stretch, and so I don't like working with it. It looks great, but to actually work with it, I really like a soft, stretchy fabric. Honestly, I would rather work with Polar Fleece than Fuzzell, even though the Fuzzell looks so good. It's just too plasticky. On the other hand, my favorite fabric to work with is a Nyla fleece, just like what we have here, but that's been hand dyed. And this is the stuff I get from a local shop called Weird Kid Store. We can show that. And it gives, when you hand dye it, and then you let it dry, it gives this wonderful knobbly, pilly texture, right? And so this seam blends beautifully, and it also is super soft and super stretchy. I absolutely love working with this stuff. This is my preferred for everything. When the time comes to rebuild the Oracle, I'm building the Oracle out of this stuff. This is great. When you added the grips to the foam mouth in your first puppet, is it attached with contact cement? Yes. And is it thick? No. Let me show you the grips, actually, because I make these in bulk. I did it on a test stream a while ago, but it's worth showing again. These are my generic grips I use for like everything. So anyway, thank you, Team Smartass. That was that question. So my least favorite is Fuzzell. My most favorite is hand-dyed Nyla fleece. These are the grips that I use. This is leather, and I just make a little loop and I put it on a base. This is big enough to fit any finger. And then depending on how many I want, I just use that many in the mouth. Most of the time, I'll just use one on the top, one on the bottom. If it's a live hands, like a thing with a eyebrow mech, I'll put two on the top and one on the bottom, and then leave the middle finger free to work the mech. But this is what I use for grips. That's what's inside this. That's what's inside both of those puppets over there. The thick question was in reference to the Nyla fleece. Oh, yes. It's, I think, 14 ounce. It's whatever there's only one that's available now. There used to be a 12 ounce, I think, that is no longer available. But Nyla fleece only comes in, I think, 14 but it does feel thicker because of the hand dyeing. It feels very, very mushy and soft and plush. But yeah, thicker the better. Although you do have to bear in mind when you're doing a design, right? Look how much bulk, right, the fleece adds. So you kind of have to think about that as you're designing, that it's going to end up being thicker than you envision. You hand stitch leather. No, I did that on a machine. I didn't do it on this machine. This is a heavy duty machine. It should go through the leather, no problem. Some machines will probably have a problem getting through this. You want to use a good thick needle. But no, I do these on the machine. If you go back, there's a video on the YouTube channel that's like a test stream for this stuff. I made a whole bunch of these on live stream, and you can just watch the whole process. But yeah, I found that these are the best kind of universal grips because they're very flexible, right? Because they're individuals, you can put in as many as you want or as you need. Since they're leather, they hold really well. They grip onto the fingers really well. You're not going to slip out of this. They're the kind of best that I have come up with. Some people don't want animal products, obviously, so you can make these in like elastic, for example. But leather is by far the best. And when you're making a grip out of leather, most leather that you get, this is just like scrap leather, it'll have a finished side and an unfinished side. You want the kind of rough, unfinished side to glue onto, and also that's against the skin, because that's going to grip a little bit better. Would fake leather work? It depends on the texture. It will work if it's porous. That's the thing about leather, right? It's literally skin. So it's got pores in it, and the glue can kind of get into those pores and really hold really well. As long as what you're using is porous, then it should. No problem. If you can find like an ultra suede that's thick enough. The ultra suede in general is quite thin, but if you can get thick stuff or even like laminate and put thick ultra suede together, that would probably work as well, like a synthetic ultra suede. I've never used artificial leather, so I'm not sure about that, but as long as it's porous, then you should be fine. And I'm not sure that artificial leather is. It's probably hard to do that. But, you know, if you've got some, or you can get some scraps somewhere, it's worth an experiment, absolutely. Yeah, there's that. Good questions. Wow, I think we're pretty much at time here. I think we're going to call it. If there are no more questions, now's your chance. You'll have a sip of coffee. We'll wait for more questions. I feel like such a phony because, like, I'm not that experienced. I've had enough experience, and I kind of know what I'm doing, but this is just from what I've done. This is not, I don't mean to come off as some kind of authority, you know. This is just what I know. Is porousness for sweat and skin oil? Kind of. That's more to do with the foam. This is why reticulated foam is used in preference over upholstery foam, because it is an open cell foam and it allows it to evaporate. Yeah, fake it till you make it. Yeah, no kidding. That's why you generally prefer something like an upholstery or a reticulated foam over an upholstery foam. Most of my puppets are upholstery foam. This is all upholstery foam that we made here. You made over 100 puppets, so that counts for a lot. That's true. Yeah, actually, I figured it out. I've made about 150, between 150 and 200 total. That's okay, you know, for being into this just over 2 years. I guess that's all right. But yeah, like I said, most of my puppets are upholstery foam because they're for collectors and they're for hobbyists. If I do a professional puppet, I will definitely make it out of reticulated foam just because I know it's going to get heavy use. If you know your puppet's going to get heavy use, try and make it out of reticulated foam, at least the parts that are going to be next to the human skin. If it's just for fun and just for a hobby, it's just for craft, then upholstery foam is fine. It just won't last as long. That's all. But that is for human, the salt and stuff and sweat will degrade it. But that's true of all foam. It's just that reticulated foam will last longer. It will let the moisture evaporate rather than build up like a sponge. All of them are 5-star puppets as well. I think there was one that I did sell a small to somebody who gave me like 4.5 or something like that. That was because it was before I started doing the leather grips, and the grips in the original smalls weren't that great. And I couldn't figure out how to make them good and still make them that small. That's when I came up with this, because this works much better. And that was totally fair. That was a fair assessment. Oh, thank you, Chef the Bud. Glad you could come by. So yes, we are at time. I'm gonna have an on-time lunch. Thank you, as always, everybody, for showing up. It makes it all worth it. The next stream will be... Let's double check. Calendars. Calendars are hard. The next stream will be on the 22nd. At 11 a.m. Eastern, as always. Thank you so much. We're going to head out. Good progress today. We're going to get to the really fun stuff next time. I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. So have a good day. Have a good weekend. And we will talk to you. Getting my finger over the end button. We will talk to you next time. Thank you very much, everyone.